What's going on, everybody? Hope you all are having a great day. So I just got done reading this video's reading, which was Genesis chapter 15, 16, and 17. And it's kind of inspiring. Yesterday's reading, I kind of had a hard time taking anything from it. And but then reading today's, it shed a little more light on yesterday's as well. It's a little more, I don't want to say character development, because I mean they're not just characters in a book. I mean, these are people of the Bible. But it was a little more into who we were talking about, which was Abram and Sarai. That's how I believe it's pronounced. Not real sure. But in today's reading, we come across where God basically changes their names. Abram is to now be known as Abraham, and Sarai is to now be known as Sarah. And like I said, it's giving a little more insight into who they were, and it made yesterday's reading a little more understandable, I guess. I think the biggest thing that I'm taking away from today is how faithful Abraham was to God, and how his faith in God, I think in a way created faith in God for Sarah as well. Sarah is quite interesting. Well, and so is Abraham. But for me, the thing that kind of stuck out is when we started getting to know Abram and Sarai, Abraham and Sarah, it kind of is interesting. Like, the Bible doesn't ever really reveal, like, how Sarah reacted or how Sarah felt about stuff. And I could only imagine, like, first she finds out that Abraham wants her to be his wife, or his wife, and it doesn't say how she reacted, how she felt about it, nothing. And then one day he comes home and he's like, there's this God, his name's Jehovah, and we've been living in this place for a long time, but he tells us we gotta go. And we gotta go this way because he's gonna make us famous. He's gonna give us many, many sons and make a great nation unto us. And she's just like, okay, let's go. If this is, let's go. And a few years later, after, they had gone and rescued Lot from a tribal war, which, again, it doesn't say much about how she reacted, if she was scared, if she was brave, if, nothing. She just, all right, let's go. Let's do this. They started getting up there in age, and in verse 15, it starts out with God appearing to Abraham and telling him, I'm going to make you a great nation, and I'm going to you're going to have, a lot. And Abram's like, you've given me no seed. The one, born in my house that is an heir of my, my legacy is a steward. Like he was, a house servant basically. And he was, in his 80s at the time. And God was like, just trust me. Just trust me. And so he was like, okay, cool. I trust you. And at the same time, though, here's where we see a little bit of Sarah kind of, I don't know if it's a mistrust or if it was a impatient thing. Because Sarah couldn't have kids. She was barren. And when Abram told her, hey, God said we're going to have a kid and we're going to have many kids and we're going to have nations, she was like, cool, does he know that I can't have kids? Or, I don't know what she thought, but knowing that she couldn't have kids, she was like, well, at that time, women that couldn't have children were basically ashamed to their husbands, which is kind of that sucks. But that was how it is in that time. Well, so she was like, all right, well, take my maiden and have a kid with her. And Abram was like, okay, fine, whatever. I think it was a little bit of impatience on both of their parts. Even though God told him, you're going to have children. I think both of them were like, he said it's going to happen, so it needs to happen right now. But it doesn't, God never promised you're going to have children right this second. He just said, I'm going to give you a nation. And he left it at that. Well, when Sarah saw that Hagar, which was her servant, did have Abram's son, who they named Ishmael, she thought she would be happy because at that time, the maidens or the house servants or whatever, they would have the children, and then Sarah basically was like, then I'll adopt the child and it'll be mine and it'll be Abraham's and that'll be, our heir. But she wasn't happy with it, and she kind of lashed out at Abram for it. And Hagar actually fled, and an angel came to her and was like, don't flee. It's cool. Go back because Ishmael's going to be, a great person as well. In fact, it says that in chapter 16, where to go? Down here in verse. Sorry about that. Push the wrong button on my little remote. So, we're back. So, it says down here that the angel said unto Hagar, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, and thou shalt not be numbered for multitude. It basically, he said, go back, have the child, and he's going to be fine. The angel said, God's going to take care of him. He's going to do everything and more that you could have ever expected. So she did, and, she went back, she had Ishmael, and we get over to chapter 17, and that's when, the name changes happen. He says, God came to Abraham and said, you're your name shall, no more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee. And I think, it goes back a little bit to that faithfulness in God, and he was just like, okay, you changed my name and don't know why, but that's my new name. And then he goes on and says, Sarai will no longer be Sarai, she'll be Sarah. And it says, I will bless, God promises in verse 16, chapter 17, verse 16, and I will bless her and give thee a son also of her. And he says, I will bless her, and she will be a mother of nations. King of people shall be of her. And it's kind of funny because in the very next verse, Abram says, it says he fell on his face and laughed. And he was like, kind of like if somebody were to come to somebody and say, hey, you're going to do this, and they're like, you're crazy. I think that's kind of like what I see Abraham doing, like falling on his face, laughing, like, this is nuts. This is not going to happen. But he says, he said in his heart shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old, and shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? Like, dude, you're crazy. Like, we're old. And Abram said, oh, that Ishmael might live unto thee. And when he laughs, it's like I said, it's kind of, I don't know if it's like, if some of that faith was starting to subside, but at the same time, I know it wasn't, because he keeps going, and he goes to Sarah and he's like, hey, guess what? Our name's changed. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier with Sarah, is she was just like, okay, cool. It doesn't say really ever how she felt about it. And like, it makes me wonder, like, how did she feel about some of this? But at the same time as all of this was going on, the thing that keeps, kind of replaying, and it goes into what I was saying with the stuff yesterday, is the thing that stands out most between all of it is, even as far-fetched as some of these promises that they're making, or that God is making sound to Abraham and to Sarah and to even probably people around them, that they're telling, hey, this is what God said, even as far-fetched as it sound, they didn't give up on it. They didn't say, it sounds crazy, there's no way, we're not doing it, we're out. They were just like, okay, cool, let's do it. And it's pretty inspiring to think about. Like, I wonder how many times in the past, God's spoken to somebody and said, hey, you're gonna do this, and when they fell on their face laughing, they didn't get up and say, okay, that was good, but I'm gonna hold you to it because it's a promise, like Abraham did. So Abraham, he laughed, he got up, and he said, all right, let's go. And I wonder how many times people laughed and said, all right, that was a good one, see you later. And it's inspiring that, like I said, that they just kept going. They kept having that faith, and they kept just saying, okay, just let's go, let's do it, onward and upward, I guess. And it's making me like want to keep my faith strong. Like, I know that sometimes it can be hard to do so, but knowing what happens to Abraham and what happens to Sarah, and knowing, without reading forward, knowing what's going to happen because God promised it, and God doesn't break promises, it's like, okay, you got to be faithful. You have to keep that faith going. And it's got me hopeful for the future things to come. And I think I'm gonna leave it there tonight, or today, or whatever time you're watching this video. And yeah, so I really enjoyed this reading. It was, again, Genesis 15, 16, and 17. It was really cool to see how things are starting to play out, and it makes me want to read ahead and keep reading, but I'm gonna hold off on it because I want you guys to read along with me, and I want you guys to leave me some comments and let me know, like, what are you taking from it? What is your takeaway from today's reading? Do you kind of have the same feeling that I'm having, that this is kind of a lesson on being faithful, or is it something else? Does it mean something else to you? I would love to know. So leave me a comment down below. And tomorrow, our next video, day number 7, it's going to be, let me just double check here. Yep. It's going to be Genesis chapter 18, 19, and 20. So I'm excited because, like I said, I know what God has promised in today's reading, and so I'm excited to see it fulfilled in tomorrow's reading, and to see how it's fulfilled, and to see how Abraham and Sarah's faithfulness is rewarded. So I look forward to that video, and I hope you guys do too. And if you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below so that you can read along with me. Speaking of reading along with me, though, I'm going to tell you guys all the time, the 1 year through the Bible devotional is where I'm getting my reading plan from. I do read the actual devotional part, but it's not really what I talk about necessarily in the video. And the reason is this is more of what I'm taking from the reading. The devotional does give a good kind of outline of the overall gist of it, I guess. But I'm kind of giving you more of what I'm receiving from it. So also, if you need a good study Bible, the link is also down below in the description. So go grab those. The link for the devotional is also down in the description. So if you do want to follow along, here it is. Go grab one. And I will see you guys tomorrow. And I appreciate you tuning in today, though. So see you guys tomorrow. And yeah. Oh, tomorrow's reading. One more time. Genesis 18, 19, and 20. All right. See you guys then.